Chike, is it until I die that you make money like other boys?
That was the first thing Mama Chike said the moment he stepped into the compound that evening. Chike quietly dropped the small bag that contained the few sewing materials he used for his tailoring apprenticeship and forced a tired smile.
Mama.
You know I'm still learning. My master said I'm improving every day.
Learning? That is what you've been telling me for the past 2 years. Look at Chiboy. Last month, he bought his mother a brand new car. Chima, the boy who sat beside you in primary school, has just completed a 3-story building for his mother.
Mama, I know.
This weekend, the whole village will gather to celebrate him. And you are here, still carrying this bag around. So tell me, when will people gather to celebrate because of you and your brother? When will I finally enjoy what my fellow women are enjoying from their sons?
The thread snapped for the second time that morning. Chike stared at the broken end, blinking, as if the machine itself had betrayed him. It had not. His hands had simply stopped listening to him. Chike? Oganamdi's voice was not unkind, only puzzled. What is wrong with you?
Sorry, Oga.
Nothing, sir. Sorry, sir. Oganamdi studied him a moment longer than usual, the way a craftsman studies a crack he cannot yet explain, then returned to his own work without another word. Around Chike, the shop moved on as it always did, machines humming, customers haggling by the door. But inside Chike, something else was running underneath all of it, quiet and constant. Will I die before you succeed? His mother's words did not shout anymore. They had moved in quietly and made a home somewhere behind his ribs, and now they spoke whenever the shop went quiet, whenever his hands slowed, whenever he let himself think for even a second about anything else other than the stitch in front of him. He bent lower over the machine and tried to focus, but it did not fully work. At home, Mama Chike knelt over an old wooden box she rarely opened. Inside, wrapped in a faded cloth, lay a photograph gone soft and pale at the edges. A young man in a white singlet, laughing at something outside the frame, one hand raised as though caught mid-promise. She did not smile at the picture. She never did. He had been a bicycle repairer, good with his hands, better with his words. Always saying, next season. Next season, we will paint this house. Next season, I will buy you that blue wrapper from the market. Mama Chike had loved that about him once. His patience, his certainty that better days were only ever one harvest away. 10 years, 10 long years, and some days it still felt like the fever had broken only yesterday. It had started small. A heat in his body that would not leave, a shiver that would not stop even under 2 blankets. She had given him what the chemist sold her, then what the herbalist gave her. And when none of them worked, she had finally carried him to the hospital herself, half walking, half dragging him through the dark, his arm heavy across her shoulders. No deposit, no bed, the nurse at the desk had said, not cruelly, just tiredly, the way people say things they have said too many times before. 15,000 naira. That was all that stood between her husband and the hospital bed. 15,000 naira, and she did not have it. She had run that night, to her brother, who had nothing to give, to her husband's cousin, who sent her away. She had sold her only good wrapper to a woman 2 streets away for less than half its worth. She had knelt in front of people who used to eat at her table and begged, and some of them had turned their faces from her like she was already something to be pitied.
For God's sake.
By the time she returned, the doctor's fists closed tight around the borrowed money, but her husband could no longer sit up on his own. And 3 days later, he was gone. The village had been kind for exactly as long as village kindness ever lasted. Food arrived for the first week. Sympathy visits filled the compound for the second. By the third week, the same women who had wept with her at the burial were the ones whispering about how a widow with one small son would survive.
Just that small boy.
She heard every whisper. She answered none of them. She simply walked harder so that one day no one would ever have reason to whisper about her again. 10-year-old Chike had stood in the doorway that whole night, too afraid to come closer, too afraid to look away. He never said anything about it, not then and not now, but she had seen his eyes that night and she had never forgotten them. That was the year Mama Chike decided poverty would never again be allowed to make decisions for her family. To her, money was not greed. Money was the difference between a bed and a doorway, between yes, we will treat him and no deposit, no bed. Kneeling beside her husband's body, she had promised herself she would never again stand helpless while poverty took something from her. She had kept that promise the only way she knew how, by pushing the one thing she had left to push, her son. She folded the photograph back into its cloth and closed the box, her hand resting on the lid a moment longer than necessary. By mid-morning, she was already at her stall by the roadside, weighing Gary into old milk tins for customers who argued over every naira.
My customer.
She smiled when the moment called for it, and she laughed when a joke deserved laughing at.
For me. No, this is the best price today.
That evening, Chike returned from the shop earlier than usual. He was almost at the gate when he heard voices from the backyard, his mother's and Mama Daisy's, low over the sound of water being drawn from the well. Chike stopped.
Chike is a good boy. He works harder than any apprentice. You really do not need to worry so much.
Everyone says so to my face, Mama Chike replied. But do I know what they say when I am not there? His father was patient too, always waiting for the right season, always waiting for when things would get better. But that never happened. She paused and continued. Sometimes I look at Chike sleeping and I see his father's face. I am afraid, Mama Daisy. I am so afraid he might end up just like his father. From where Chike stood, his hand tightened on the gate. He had never known his father was spoken of in that way. Patient and waiting. And it had not saved him. The words landed inside Chike, somewhere he had no name for.
And it had not saved him.
He did not go inside. He stood there in the evening light, letting the words settle over him like dust, until his chest felt too small for his own breathing. He thought of stepping through the gate right then, of telling her he had heard everything, of asking her what exactly it was she was so afraid of losing. But that was not how things worked between them.
So he stayed where he was, silent, invisible, the way he always managed to be even when he was standing right there. Then from the road, noise broke the evening apart. Children shouting, sandals slapping against dust, voices tumbling over one another. A car has entered the village. It is Obina. Obina has come back. By the time Chike reached the road, half of the village was already gathered, sandals kicking up dust in the fading light. A black SUV sat gleaming where Okadas and bicycles usually passed, with windows tinted. Engine humming low and expensive. Dust still settling on its bonnet.
You are afraid.
Children pressed close, daring each other to touch it. Someone behind Chike murmured that the boy had left the village with nothing, and no one could ever explain how he came back with all this. Nobody answered. Nobody wanted to be the one to ask. Just then, the car door opened. A polished shoe stepped down first, then the rest of him. He was taller than Chike remembered, dressed in clothes that had never once needed a village tailor's needle, a watch on his wrist catching the last of the sun. Chike's hat lifted, and something else moved beneath it, something with no name yet, something that felt almost like fear wearing hope's clothes.
Chike.
Mama Chike appeared at the edge of the crowd too, drawn
Chike,
out by
what
the
are you
noise
doing?
like everyone else. Her eyes found Chike across the distance before they found the car. Neither of them said anything. There was nothing left that evening that had not already been said. Obina, Chike's classmate and childhood friend, had come home with a brand new car.
This is just the beginning.